From Ain't My Type of Hype to All Cried Out to Roxanne Roxanne to Thanks for My Child, Full Force shaped the soundtrack of many of our lives. We should thank them for their impact on us. And with that, I want to welcome Full Force to allhiphop.com presents The Library with Tim Heinekel. Gentlemen, it's an honor to have you on. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's up?
So, thank you. So I want to, of course, start from the beginning, and whoever, please feel free to, whoever wants to answer. Who exactly were the Ademptions, and what were your hopes for that particular group when you guys came out with that?
The Ademptions?
Yes.
Well, I'll take that. What happened is that back in the day, before Full Force, actually, me and my two brothers, the Full Force brothers, Paul Anthony and B Fine, we had a group called the Amplifiers. Then after a while, we called ourselves Seventh Decision. And the backup band for us back then, as we were performing in the neighborhood, was a group called the Ademptions, which later on became Crown Heights of Fear. Because when we broke up, they became Crown Heights of Fear, and they got a record deal before us, and I was a little jealous. But that was the Ademptions. But we went by the name of the Amplifiers when we were little, when my father and my uncle Cito put us together as a group. We were so young, the three brothers, and we did the Apollo Theater and things like that. And we did later shows. When we moved to when we moved to East Flatbush, that's when the three of us got together with our cousins, Baby Gerry, Shy Shy, and Kurt, and that's when we formed Full Force.
When did you? I mean, I think about my cousins and my brothers and how musically untalented we are, and you think about you six as an entire, one family, extremely obviously musically talented family. When did the three brothers and the three cousins first know that each of you had this musical talent, and what was that kind of piece of music or maybe genre of music that you guys were bonding over at the time?
That's tricky.
Well, Jerry, the cousins, you guys was doing your thing also, like as a group or into music, DJing, and everything like that. Am I right, Jerry? Kurt?
Yeah, well, we kind of took like any kid, we were just kind of looking for stuff to do on the regular, outside, playing football, doing whatever. But yeah, music was always kind of the common denominator. We went to a lot of the block parties, a lot of the park jams, right up by the school there, took to DJing and we kind of did that at the same time as Full Force was being culminated. We were kind of doing our little thing, doing basement parties, this and that. And so, yeah, hip hop music in general was always kind of this thing. But when Full Force got formed, it was more of all right, how can we make this all one thing? We would be in the basement trying to jam out, find out who can play what. B was on drums, and Kurt was on guitar. Shy was on bass. He's not here right now. And I would dabble in keyboards and stuff, but it was more like, oh, okay. So right when that thing happened with the Amplifiers, and they kind of separated from their band, it was more like, hey, well, can we make this thing work? Can we kind of be the music surrounding what Paul and Lou do? With vocally. So it came together kind of spectacularly. We didn't, it wasn't forced. It was more like, oh, okay, this is kind of making sense right now. You know what I mean? So it kind of just kind of happened. You know what I mean?
But you know what? I like to add to that. What happened is that my brother B, the three of us growing up, the brothers, our brother B wasn't into singing. He had to be forced to do that. My father would, like me and Paul, Paul was the first one to start singing. Then I became jealous, and then I started singing with Paul, and my father would look at us. He forced Brian to do it, which is B Fine. He said, if you don't sing, you do nothing else. And he would beat him and everything. And so he was singing with us. So the three of us would do our thing. But now, when we moved over to East Flatbush, B wasn't so much into singing, but one thing he loved to do was play them damn drums. And he got together with Jerry, Kurt, and Shy Shy, and they were their own foursome group. I don't know what name you guys went by at the time. It wasn't Full Force, but what was the name y'all went by, Jerry, when y'all was performing at Winthrop High School and stuff like that? Do you remember?
I can't even remember. What was that? No, I can't remember.
Was it
Well, no, you guys were performing. I saw the four of you perform just by yourselves at Winter Junior High School, and doing songs like the Mellow Sound and everything like that.
and the disco kids.
I don't know if y'all called yourself the Disco Kids, but y'all were performing, and my cues from Cult Jam was on Codes. And y'all performed, and I went back to Paul. I said, "Yo, Paul, man, they sound really good, man. Maybe we could all form something together." And I remember telling B, I said, "Yo, B, man, y'all are so dope," because people were screaming for them and everything. Girls were screaming. It was crazy. And I said, maybe we could join with them. And I said, B, maybe me and Paul could join with y'all. We could put it together, maybe take it to the next level. And B was so excited about that. He said, "For real? Lou, are you?" And he was so excited. Went back to the guys, and the rest was history. We merged into it. I came up with the name Full Force, and we were such a force to reckon with in the neighborhood. We would perform like one of our premier clubs was a club called Club Ecstasy in Brooklyn. I always looked at that club like as a Radio City music hall of neighborhood clubs, because they used to have all the big acts there. When we performed there, we promoted ourselves, and the line was around the corner for that show, and we killed it, as Full Force. And it was a local group, and from there, everything started to gel even more.
You're obviously talking about you as a music group, Full Force, and as in the intro, as I mentioned, not just your songs shaped my childhood, but songs that you guys actually sang on and played for, but songs that you actually wrote and you actually produced, like All Cried Out, Roxanne, Roxanne, I'm Real, et cetera, et cetera. So you guys and Michael Jackson shaped my childhood, essentially.
Thanks, man.
But early on, what was the goal for Full Force prior to writing for other people? And then can you also talk about the importance of Steve Salem, and what he meant to the group, and what did he have that kind of helped change the trajectory of your group?
Okay. Oh, well, Steve Salem, I invited Steve Salem was a friend of mine. We went to college together. He majored in behavioral science. He wasn't even into music, but I invited him to one of our shows at in Brooklyn, actually Club Ecstasy. Him and a dear friend of ours named Joyce Flint from college. He came to see us perform, and he was blown away. He was so blown away. Me and him started talking. I said, "Steve, man, you always have great ideas in school," because he used to have, he ran the social behavioral science place, but I always knew he had great ideas. So he started coming around us more. We'd come to the basement where we practiced in, which was at Kurt's house. And he really started getting into us. And I said, "Man, you should work with us, man, and you could be like our co-manager," and which is what he did. And I got to tell you, it's because of Steve Salem, may he rest in peace, because such a great guy. But because of him, we used to do original songs. He's the one that kept pushing us to perform original songs or write our own songs. So that's what we would do. And we would send them to different record companies, and we just couldn't get a deal as Full Force the group. So Steve Salem was the one to say, "Listen, guys, you know what I think? I think you guys should write and produce for other people. If you write and produce for other people, something tells me that the other people will be successful, and then you guys, Full Force, will get a record deal of your own." Now, I was against it. Everybody else was for it because I just cared about Full Force the group. But I never heard of an R&B group writing and producing for anybody. I just never heard of it. But I was outvoted anyway. And that's what we did. We started writing and producing for other folk. And it first started with Kurtis Blow. We did like 5 songs on Kurtis Blow's album. We worked with Kurtis Blow, co-wrote, played. Kurt and Jerry played the music with Kurtis Blow, songs like Basketball, which was like the biggest one that we were part of. We got to go on the road with Kurtis Blow. And then after that, we hooked up with UTFO, Lisa and Code Jam. And then Steve Salem was right. Then Full Force got our own record deal for ourselves. So if it wasn't for Steve Salem, we would not be writers and producers for other people. And that's our bread and butter.
True that.
God bless Steve in heaven.
Yeah, man.
Just curious, why couldn't you at that time just, hindsight is 2020, but uh, take the songs you were writing for these other artists and just make them your own, like, and then with that get signed as to a record label versus writing for other groups and having them do it, and then you guys getting
Because
signed.
we were always striving to sound different, give off different energy, look different. Full force. We was always trying to always blaze our own path, and our music was somewhat of a fusion between R&B, hip hop, rock. We had songs that walked the edge. So we was really, really, really ahead of our time musically, and with style and influence. So they wasn't really ready for it. So
Mm.
sometimes when you don't focus on yourself and do others, you don't put that microscope on it to push to be different. Writing for others, we said, okay, let's just do the best of what's already out there. We used to go for ourselves. We was like, oh no, we need to be different, edgy in every way. So that's what happened. So then the idea started flowing, and then as Steve suggested, that there eventually was a bidding war between Columbia and Warner Brothers over the guys who created Roxanne, and Lisa. I mean, we are pretty much credited with bringing freestyle dance music into the world, more or less. So yeah, it worked out well because we was always trying to be different. And then even after we got our deal, we were still different. And we're still different musically. We're still different in terms of our style, our persona. We was able to fit on a hip hop tour, an R&B tour, and then we jump on shows with Lisa. So we was always just blazing our own trail.
I want to ask you about Lisa and UTFO, but of course, you mentioned Kurtis Blow, working with Kurtis Blow and 5 tracks. How did that collaboration come together? How did you guys meet Kurtis? And what was I guess Basketball was the big hit, but what was the first track you guys wrote together?
Guys,
Well, with Kurtis Blow, man, I got to attribute that also. I got to attribute that also to Steve Salem, and actually our father, who would Curtis had producers at the time. Robert Ford, may he rest in peace, and J.B. Moore. They were his producers. Steve Salem and my father met Robert Ford and J.B. Moore, and they became friends. And before you know it, brought us into the studio just to kind of hang out with Kurtis Blow at the time. And then before you know it, the first song we actually did with Kurt, and even though we don't get credited with producing it, we did produce the song, and we actually wrote it. I mean, B wrote the lyrics. It was called Big Time Hood, and B wrote the lyrics to that, and Kurtis and the guys did the music, and we did the backgrounds. And Kurtis Blow, I got to give it to him, man, because he was such a big star in his own right, but he was so humble, and he was so nice to us, and so good to us, and he respected us, and he listened to us with what we wanted him to do. He could have said, "Who the hell are these young whippersnappers?" But he treated us like we were veterans in the game. And I'll never forget that, man. And up to this day, God bless him. He had a heart transplant. God bless him. Still keeping communication with him. But it was that song. We did another song called it was 5 songs in total, but Big Time was the first one. We did another one called Under Fire. We did another one called Under Fire with Kurtis Blow. It was on one of his albums. But Basketball was the biggest one of all. Kurt and Jerry played on that one, and that was the biggest record from Kurtis Blow ever. And this is when Full Force wasn't even known yet.
We talk about Roxanne, and of course that was made by UTFO, but you guys deserve full credit for making this happen. How did you guys meet UTFO, and what was your first impressions of them when you
B should be here to give that story, right? Yeah.
Why he's not here?
Yeah. Let me see. Look, I remember B would say that I think B and Kurt and I think B and Kurt went to Wingate. Yeah, they went to Wingate. Wingate is Wingate High School, which is a real rough high school back in the day in Brooklyn, New York. Okay. And I think B got the word that this young kid was either flirting or trying to rap to his girlfriend. who also went to Wingate.
No. They went to Winthrop.
Oh, Winthrop. Okay, that's the junior high school.
Winthrop Junior High? Yeah.
Right.
Right.
That's the junior high school. Right. Lou, you got a better memory than me. Go ahead. What do you remember?
Well, Kango. So here's the deal. Michael Hughes from Cult Jam was in the middle of everything in the beginning. Because, Michael Hughes from Cult Jam used to, when Full Force would post up stickers and flyers of our name all over the 5 boroughs saying, Full Force is back. Even though we wasn't back from a damn place, Michael Hughes would always be with us with Elmer's glue putting up flyers and stickers. So he knew everybody. So Michael Hughes was good friends with Kango Kid, who later became of UTFO. And he was also good friends with us. So what happened is that B's girlfriend at the time, named Arintha Poe, aka Booby, was complaining to him that this guy keep messing with her and flirting with her and just bothering her, being a pain in the ass. And he was Kango. So B went up to Winthrop actually to kick Kango's ass, to beat his ass for messing with his girlfriend. So he went to Mike Hughes. He said, "Yo, Mike, who's this guy? Who's this guy showing for queer? That's his birth name. That's messing around with Booby. That's messing around with my girl." And then Mike showed said, "He's right over here, B." And Mike Hughes showed B who Kango was. And the first time B saw Kango, he was on stage at Winthrop Junior High School performing. He was dancing. He was doing the lock and all those the dances. So B just looked at him on stage and he said, "Wow." So he told Mike, he said, "You're Mike. I changed my mind. I'm not gonna fuck this guy up. Give him my number, and I want to talk to him because he dances real good. Maybe I can get him to dance and be a part, and open up for us during our local shows. All right." And then Mike said, "All right, B." And then B left. And then when Mike approached Kango after the fact, Kango's like, Mike says, "Yo, Kango, you saw that big guy that was with me?" And Kango said, Yeah. Who was that? "Yo, man, he came to bust your ass. That's Booby's boyfriend. That's Booby's boyfriend, okay? So he came to kick your ass, but instead he liked the way you dance, so he wanted to communicate with you. So I'm gonna give you your number." And that's how the UTFO thing started. When B started speaking to Kango, and then Kango is the one to bring in Dr. Ice and the educated rapper, may he rest in peace, and Mixmaster Ice. They were UTFO, and that's how B connected with them initially. And I don't know. Do you remember any of those early stories, Kurt? Because I'm pretty sure you and B used to hang out a lot.
Troublemakers in school.
Yeah, I remember what you said. Yeah, I did remember that. That's what happened. But as far as even when we went into the studio, I mean, we all went in at the same time. As far as putting the songs together and all that. B had the idea of doing Roxanne, and we all got together and put the song together. But one of the things a lot of people don't know back then, in this day and time, there wasn't anything called automation for the board, meaning you let the computer do it. So all of us would literally have our hands on the mixing board, turning on and off different instruments. I mean, like it was automation. At that time, there was no automation. So
hilarious, man. The stuff we went through. Wow. Yeah, crazy.
Did you guys have to Did you have to tape the board down to make sure no one messed with it?
Exactly. Don't touch the board. Don't touch the board.
Yeah. I'm going to kill you.
Exactly.
I mean, you obviously talk about Roxanne, and history is obviously the history behind it and what it meant for the record, and also if you think about it, it kind of did a blueprint for Response. Roxanne's Revenge became the Response record, and then it kind of was a blueprint for how people could do record labels and kind of make that hit. Call out some artists if you want, they'll respond, and you have a hit. That can you talk about how Roxanne was made? Who came up with the idea? But then, did you imagine what it was going to become? Like how a life of its own it was going to happen afterwards?
Nah. Hello.
No, not at all. You know what it was? We already did a song with UTFO. It was a small label called Select Records at the time, which Steve Salem, of course, took us to. And the first song we did with UTFO that we produced with UTFO was a song called Beats and Rhymes. And that did okay. So then here we are coming out with the second single on UTFO. And it's a song that we were preparing to do, and it was called Hanging Out. That was the A side. B woke up one morning and he said, "Hey man, I want to let's do a B side to that song, Hanging Out." Like a B side back in the days. Well, everybody knows the B side. You know, we had vinyl. The A side is the main song. The B side is like sort of like a throwaway song. But B for some reason wanted to do a B side, and he came up with the concept of Roxanne, Roxanne. The concept. He went to UTFO. And he told them the concept. He said, "Listen, the three of y'all fight over a girl, but nobody gets the girl." Because, you know, back in those days, every rapper got the girl. But in this instance, B said, no, it's going to be Roxanne. Like, B's only idea to call it Roxanne, Roxanne was, he said, it's an unheard of name, and plus it worked for the police, you know? So that's what he called it that. And he told the guys, and then the guys came up with some great legendary lyrics from Kango Kid to Dr. Ice to the late great educated rapper. And B also had like Mixmaster Ice scratching on the record, scratching like if he was a musician. And that song, which was supposed to be a throwaway song, it was just on the B side. You know, I thought Hanging Out was a hit. I looked at Roxanne like it's a cute song. But what happened is that DJ Red Alert started playing, which we thought was the wrong song. He started playing Roxanne, Roxanne. And I remember me and Paul calling him up and saying, "Yo, Red, what are you doing? You're playing the wrong joint. It's the A. That's what you're supposed to play." He's telling us, no. Well, I like the B-side. I said, "Yeah, but it's the wrong song." But then he started getting pissed off at me and Paul. He was like, "I want."
No, wait. It was like 2 a.m, and we said, Red, you're playing the wrong song. And we woke him up. He said, "I'm gonna play the B-side." No, Red, you don't understand. You're playing the wrong song. Roxanne, Roxanne is not the lead. The lead is Beats and Rhymes, okay? And he said,
"No, Hanging Out."
You're hanging out.
And he said, "I'm gonna play the B-side." And he was like, "Okay, that was it."
It's so funny. He said the B side should have been he said, well, the B side should have been the A side.
Well, the other strange part about the record, I think what the charm of that record was to especially DJs like Red and different people was B also had the concept of each story, each rapper having their own beat. If you remember Roxanne, the beats literally switch up with each verse, which had never been done before. That was literally kind of right off the streets of hip hop. You know what I mean? That was what hip hop was doing back then in the streets. You know what I mean? Nobody had brought it to record yet, though. You know what I mean? You had a track and you had cats rapping. B's idea was like, yo, let's switch up the joints on each one. When Doc raps, he got his own beat. Kango does his own beat. Educator. So that I think was what hit everybody out of the pot. You know, they didn't know how to deal with that, and that was kind of like the winning factor of that joint. You know what I mean? In hindsight, crazy.
And you know what? One more thing. And one of the beats for Roxanne, Roxanne was the world famous Big Beat by Billy Squier that all the hip hop rappers loved. We added that, into Roxanne, Roxanne, which of course was something that was never done before. Sampling the beat.
One of our songs. Hey Tim, listen, they're ready for me. I'm at Sloan Kettering Cancer Center.
Okay.
I'm about to get my blood work. I'm gonna let my guys take care from there, man. All right. Much love to you and God you
too, man.
okay?
Love you, Paulie.
All right, baby.
Thanks for having me. When did you know? I guess when did you guys know it was a big record? Did you wait for did you have to wait for that release by Roxanne Shante, or was it already this big record that was already happening?
Yeah, it was already a smash before Shante came with it. It was a top 10. It was on top 10 Billboard R&B charts. Check that out. Top 10 R&B charts. It was on all the rap charts and everything. Number 1, number 2, number 5. It was huge on the rap charts. But when it became top 10 on the R&B charts, we're like, wow. So it was already a big hit. And then came the little brat, 13-year-old braces wearing Roxanne Shante, came up with Roxanne's Revenge, which blew us away. We're like, what the heck? And she was doing this, she was dogging UTFO on wax. And we're like, who's that? Now, at first, when the record came out, they literally used our track. They literally used our track with our singing hook on it and everything. That was the first time they used our track. Marley Marl never did a different production or nothing like that. They just used our damn track. And they did Roxanne's Revenge off of that. So much so that they had to put our names for writing credit on Roxanne's Revenge. So if you saw that, it was written by Lolita Gooden, who's Roxanne Shante, UTFO, and Full Force. So that's how that happened. So she jumped on that, and before you know it, after her record was songs like Roxanne's Grandmother, Roxanne's Parents, Do the Roxanne Dance. Even this song by Ralph Roll came out called Roxanne's a Man. It was so ridiculous that we said to ourselves, yo, let's jump on our own bandwagon. And we came out with the real Roxanne, so it was crazy.
I'm going to obviously switch gears a little bit. The track "I Wonder If I Take You Home" was already written, my understanding, prior to Lisa Valdez auditioning for you guys. And then Lisa and the Cult Jam were created shortly after that. What stood out to you about Lisa when she auditioned for all of you?
And that's another B question, but go ahead.
Well, you said what was it when she auditioned for us?
Yeah, what stood out about her that
y'all remember she auditioned in Kurt's basement. Y'all remember that?
Yeah. She sang for Your Eyes Only by Sheena Easton.
Before that, she was singing some songs that was written by the Cult Jam member Mike Hughes at the time. And the songs was horrible. I literally remember, to this day, when Lisa was singing those songs that, to us, I was by Kurt's in the basement. I was halfway into the bathroom, laughing with tears coming out my eyes because those songs made Lisa sound so crappy. To dance and to love. That was one of them. and she was so horrible at it. The song was horrible. That I just said, listen, when she first walked into that basement, we're like, oh my God, I hope she could sing. Because she was so cute. She was a Puerto Rican. That's another thing. B wanted a Spanish person to do that song. He wanted a Hispanic to do that song. He didn't want nobody else. I mean, I tried to sneak Cheryl Pepsi Riley to do it, but B wasn't hearing it. He wanted a Spanish person, no matter who it was. But what happened is that before Lisa left, because she was so cute and so fine, and to be so young, she had she ended up having some of the music's most popular breasts ever. So to be so young, people would look at that. Then that's not why we call her Lisa, because Steve Salem made up the name. But before she left, Paul said to Lisa, "Hey Lisa, is there something you could sing to us that maybe might be familiar?" And Lisa sang "For Your Eyes Only" by Sheena Easton, and that was all she wrote. Thank God. And then the rest is history. She got the gig, and we did the damn thing with her.
Lou, you mentioned Cheryl Riley. What was she? I guess where was she at the time in her career, or with working with you guys, that you were wanting to push her to be part of, maybe Cheryl and the Cult Jam, right?
No. What happened was, and Cult Jam didn't come into formation until after we were sold on Lisa, and we said we're going to work with her because it wasn't supposed to be a Cult Jam. But Mike Hughes came to us and said, "Hey guys, man, I was thinking about if me and Al could be part of the group, and we could be a group called Cult Jam, and you could make a Lisa Cult Jam." And because Mike was so loyal to us back in the day, helping push our brand before we became popular, we said, "All right, Mike, we'll do that. No problem." But before that, me and Cheryl Pepsi Riley, before she was a Pepsi, We were friends already. We were doing theater plays, like church plays back in the day. She was one of my dear friends. And I loved her voice. I remember playing her I Wonder If I Take You Home with B Fine's reference vocals on it, which was horrible. But B was singing the reference vocals to I Wonder If I Take You Home. And I let Cheryl hear it and her husband at the time, Dave Jones, listen to the song. I said, listen, tell me what you like about this song. You know, we're auditioning people, and you know, B wants to audition a Hispanic, wants a Hispanic girl to do it. But I think if I can sneak y'all in the studio, Cheryl, you could do the song, and it might be great. But we got two stories. I say that her and her husband didn't really like the song. She's telling me she was just loyal to her group at the time called Stargaze, and that's why she didn't do it. And that's why she didn't do it, you know. But obviously, Lisa was definitely the right choice, you know, for sure.
Yeah.
Why was it important to have a Hispanic singer for you for this particular track, for the music that you had planned?
Well, because in my lifetime, in a nutshell, is that I'm very into artist development. I'm very much into that, and I always try to pay attention to the market. And at that time, the only thing popping, I remember from high school, you know, we would hang out with the the blacks and the Puerto Ricans had the same flavor, and the Dominicans had the same flavor on the basketball courts and the handball courts. And I would tease them about menudo. I say, hey, I know you like menudo, and they're like, I don't like no damn menudo, because that was for their little sisters. Because the Hispanic brothers and sisters that I grew up with, they wasn't like that. It was very, very much like, you know, Jennifer Lopez, Fat Joe, Mark Anthony, that whole type vibe. So I know that there was nothing out here like that. And I was like, damn, they're acting like the urban Hispanic don't exist. So my goal was to really, really, you know, try to obtain that, to really, you know, get that into the marketplace. And when Mike came with Lisa, I thought she was perfect because Mike was smart. Mike was always in the clubs and Mike was always with us, so he knew exactly what I was looking for. It wasn't like he knew. So when he brought Lisa, Lisa was Spanish Harlem from head to toe for real, and I was like, oh God, this girl is perfect. This girl is perfect. She is really the voice of Latin America and hip hop as far as New York City. And when she sang, when she auditioned, I loved the tone of her voice. Because I always said if a young girl knew how to sing, it would sound like Lisa. And Lisa used to wonder, yo, B, is that kind of a diss? I'm like, nah, man, because that's the same thing with Diana Ross. Berry Gordy removed the power singer to put Diana Ross there because her voice is relatable. Lisa's voice was relatable. And by choosing Lisa, it spawned a whole movement. People don't realize it. Lisa is truly unsung. And because I could hear the sound in that voice, that brought on Brenda K. Starr, that brought on the Gloria Estefan, that brought on the Cover Girls, that brought on Expose. That's all from Lisa. All from Lisa. So that's why it's so important. You know, very few times it happens where the way you imagine it, but damn, that was kind of like the way I would imagine it to be, because I knew there was a lot of Hispanic brothers and sisters that felt like they wasn't being identified into the urban market until Lisa. Before Jennifer Lopez, there was Lisa, you know? And that's why.
At the time, were there hurdles that you had to climb, I guess, with Lisa in terms of trying to get her signed? Or
Absolutely. Yeah. What happened is that me and Steve Salem took her to a record company, right? That was interested in her, because actually a lot of people wasn't interested in her or the songs. And we was shopping, me and Steve was shopping Can You Feel the Beat and I Wonder If I Take You Home. And they wasn't feeling it. But there was this independent label, because you got to remember, the independent labels was more street hip. Even the white dudes that was working the independent labels, they was hip as shit. They understood what the street market was because they had to survive. Like Next Plateau, John Roby, Arthur Baker, all those guys that were producers back then, they had to know the street scene to survive because they couldn't get in with the major labels. So we went to an independent label with Lisa, and I'll never forget this. It was me, Steve Silm sitting there, and they said to us, it was Don Jurgen and I forgot the other brother's name.
No,
But,
it's
they said
Don Oriola.
It's Jurgen. Jurgen, right?
And Don
Jurgen,
Don
Jurgen is-
Oriola.
right? And Don Ariola. And Jurgen said to me, I'll never forget. He said, "All right, listen, we love the songs. We love the songs, especially that Can You Feel the Beat record. We love these songs." He said, "Listen, we want you guys to produce it, but we want to use a different singer. We want to use Claudia Barry, who happened to be his wife. You know,
Jurgen's
so
wife,
we want to
yeah.
use somebody else to sing it." And I'll never forget, Steve Salem looked at me like, "What do you want to do, B? It's your call." Because the thing is, you gotta understand, we were starving at the time. We didn't have anything popping. We just did the Roxanne record that didn't come off fully yet. So we were like starving, and I'll never forget. He looked at me. I looked at Jurgen. I said, "Nah, that's all right. We'll pass." He said, "You're not gonna do the deal?" He said, "You guys are gonna produce it." I said, "Nah, I'm telling you, this girl is the one." I said, "You guys can't see it. I need somebody who can see it." I look back and I go, "Damn, I can't believe I did it like that." But yeah. And when we left, Steve Salem said they called him the next day, and Steve called me and said, "B, we got to go back tomorrow." I said, "What? What happened?" He said, "They want to do it with Lisa. They'll do it with Lisa." And that's how it happened. But yeah, we had a lot of resistance because you got to remember something. There was no Hispanic young ladies of that urban texture at all. At
They didn't
all.
want to take the shot.
You know? Yeah. So that's how that jumped off, finally.
And you know, when Paul mentioned earlier about we would like to help usher in the freestyle music, you know, some people would say, well, no, Shannon did freestyle. Let the music play. But what happened is that Shannon, who we love, she's African American. But when you say freestyle, and freestyle wasn't even called freestyle when Shannon did Let the Music Play. Freestyle started being called after Lisa made her footprints into, like B says, into the world of R&B, dance, pop, and hip hop all together. Then all the other Spanish people, all the other Spanish singers started coming out of anywhere, and that's where freestyle is associated with. This is the Latino people. Am I correct, guys?
Yeah, but you know what though? But to Shannon's credit, Shannon, Arthur Baker, and John Roby, they were doing records like that before us.
From the get,
Like we actually modeled. I never. It was me, Kurt, and Jerry. We was fucking obsessed with trying to get it to sound like that. I remember when we was in the studio, it was me, Kurt, Jerry, and Steve Salem, and Steve's cousin. We had to bribe into giving us $3,000 to do studio time. And we was obsessed with making it sound like John Roby and Arthur Baker stuff. So the
records were crazy.
So the deal is that lends back to what I originally said. Now the Hispanic community that we know of, that we grew up with in New York, they was rocking to all the black records like Shannon and all the club singers back then. But there was no Hispanic person to represent that side of the dance culture for them. You know, so that's how that happened. But make no mistake about it, we was definitely in the studio, and you should have seen us really trying to mimic the way John Roby did "Give Me the Night," the way they did. And let me tell you honestly, we still didn't rock it the way they did. We did it our own way. You remember that, y'all? Because we couldn't use the sound. We said, well, how did they get the words to bend like that? That "Give Me the Night." We couldn't get it, so we just did it our own way.
Yeah,
that's funny.
Crazy.
Prior to you guys getting signed, we always talk about the gift and the curse of a hit record, right? You guys, prior to getting signed, had Roxanne, and I Wonder If I Take You Home, two big hits at the time, and you yet has not been signed as a group, Full Force. Was there pressure to recreate these kind of hits as Full Force, the group, or is it the same pressure as producers? What were they expect? What was the label expecting from you in terms of watching your body of work, and where'd you guys go with that?
Interesting question.
Well, I think as far as how we got signed with Columbia Records is interesting, because what happened is we were known. Not even group wise, but we were known as, the writers and producers of UTFO. Do you hear that?
Yeah, that's our new joint. You good? You there, Lou?
Yeah, Lou, you could go. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. I
that
put on
was my
mute.
phone.
Yeah.
I couldn't even shut it off.
So no. So
No,
what
Lou's
happened
back.
is that. So what happened is that. This is crazy. What happened is that Columbia. There was a bidding war actually for Full Force. The guys that brought you Roxanne and Lisa and UTFO. That's how we were billed at. Not Full Force the group, more to say. I mean, of course, we played and we sang on all those songs, but we were just known as the guys who brought you this. So what happened is that Russell Simmons told Steve Salem he wanted us to be part of his label deal that he was looking to sign with Warner Brothers Records. Because Warner Brothers wanted us. Warner Brothers was interested in us. Then we had Columbia Records, who jumped the gun, and they went into a meeting with all the big heads, the R&B department, fucking Arnold and Cecil Holmes. They went into the meeting with all the pop department and all the white heads and everything like that, and they said, and they thought they was going to get Full Force for a single deal. You know, we was prepared to do a single deal with them. So they went near this big meeting and said, guys, we're about to sign we're about to get into hip hop with R&B hip hop. We're going to sign the group Full Force. They're the ones behind Lisa and UTFO. So they said that at the big meeting, but we never signed no contract or nothing like that. So what happens? They found out that Warner Brothers and Russell, because Russell ended up bringing Def Jam to Columbia Records, but he was going to go to Warner Brothers, and he wanted us to come with him as well. We didn't come with him, so he didn't get that deal. But what happened is that it was a bidding war between Warner Brothers and Columbia for Full Force, the group, and Columbia Records, being that they opened their mouth beforehand, they was backed into doing more than just a single deal with Full Force. They did a deal, everything for us. And the first single, even though we don't tell people we tell people that our first single was called Alice, I Want You Just For Me, but it really wasn't. Our first single was, we got so much, because of the UTFO answer back stuff, B came up with the idea, hey, let's do an answer back record for I Wonder If I Take You Home.
No. What happened? No, what happened is that Larkin Arnold wanted us to do an answer record.
Oh, really?
That's how we did it. Yeah. I
remember. To be our first single?
We had it, but he wanted that to be the first single. Because he was trying to find the easiest way, the easiest way to the market, you know. Yeah, that's how that happened. I remember that, you know. But
we came out.
Go ahead,
Lou. No,
so yeah, so
that's great. Go
ahead.
No, what happened is that, so yeah, that was the first single. I forgot that with what B just said, that Larkin Arnold, who was the vice president of Columbia at the time, wanted us to come out with that, and it was an answer back record. It didn't do good on the charts, really, but you know, it was all right. But it wasn't until we came out with the second single, Alice, I Want You Just For Me, which we did a video for, and which we told everybody that was the first single. And actually, Howie T co-wrote that with us. And, you know, he didn't get credit for production, but in essence, looking back at it, yeah, he co-produced that song with us, too, track-wise.
But was the deal just... To answer your question... No, I mean, your question was, I believe, also, do we feel a certain amount of pressure to have to do well? Yeah. Honestly, we didn't really feel no pressure. We were just happy as hell to have a record deal. You know, we didn't really feel any pressure. And you know what? We should have. We should have had that type of pressure to really do it, but we didn't. I mean, it was interesting because all throughout our career, it's like, it always felt like my main reason to wanting a hit was to stay on tour longer. You know, to have a big prominent position as far as touring. I mean, honestly, that was for me because I actually loved living through the artists. Like whether it's UTFO, whether it was Lisa, I loved that. I loved producing it and help bringing it to life and help cultivating it. I absolutely loved that. But for us, we didn't really show any type of or felt any kind of like pressure. We put the pressure on ourselves for wanting a hit and things like that. But I don't think we felt the pressure that we should have felt. You know,
yeah, we were still kind of in our own lane. Like Paul was saying earlier, we kind of had what we did as Full Force, what we thought our group represented, which was a culmination of all of those genres, but which also came through in the music, a lot of heavy hip hop influence and some rock, some whatever was going on at the time. But yeah, I guess what B's saying also is if we had felt that pressure and we had felt that whole, hey, you know what, the formula we used for this record is what we should have done. You know, I mean, we didn't get into that back then. We were literally in our own, you know, this is what we do as a group, this is what we do as producers. You know what I mean? Like this too, you know what I mean? So that's kind of it.
Right. Yeah.
Was the deal just for the group, or were you actually allowed, or was there something in the contract that allowed you to either continue to produce and write for outside label artists, or did you have to also write and produce for exclusively their label artists?
No, there was never anything like that.
Yeah, no, we wasn't exclusive.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, we worked with everybody.
Yeah, it was just full force the group, and we was allowed to produce for any and everybody.
You obviously produced for it. I can't imagine anyone being able to produce, or I can't imagine myself because I don't produce. But anyway, producing for an incredible artist, the Godfather of Soul, James Brown. How did that come to be?
Jeez.
And what is it like working with James Brown in the studio?
Go ahead, Lou.
Well, it actually came to be, and then the guys can, of course, chime in. It came to be with me actually getting a call from Johnny Musso, who was the head of Scotty Brothers at the time, as far as A&R. And he just called me and he said, yeah, with Johnny Musso, you know, we're part of James Brown's label, Scotty Brothers, and we were just like full force to produce an entire album on James Brown. And I was like, who the hell is this on the phone? I never even heard of Johnny Musso. But I was like, I thought it was a joke at first, but then it came to be real. And Scotty Brothers was the label where Mr. Brown had one of his biggest records in his career at the time, Living in America, which was on the Rocky soundtrack. And they wanted us to work with Mr. Brown, which blew us away. I'll never forget coming back to our loft on I think it was 9th Avenue, guys. I forget. It was a loft that we had, and a practice loft, and I told the guys that they wanted to produce a whole James Brown album for Scotty Brothers. And I remember Shy running to me and jumping in my damn arms. We were so excited because you got to remember, before that, we would be on the road and on the tour bus always playing James Brown, you know, and it was mind-blowing that this would happen. So all I know is that as we was getting ready to do it and working out the deal and the scheduling and everything like that, I just started hearing rumors that, well, you know, Mr. Brown, you know, James Brown is mean in the studio. And, oh man, you guys, I don't know what you're going to do. Better not get him mad. So that's what we were hearing. So I said, let me call up somebody that worked with him in the studio to find out. I got the phone number of what's his name, Jerry? B. He's the one that produced Living in America for James Brown. Dan Hartman. Yeah. Dan Hartman. I called Dan Hartman on the phone and I said, Mr. Hartman, this is Bowlegged Lou, and we're getting ready to work on James Brown's album. Can you tell me what do we look out for? Because we're a little nervous. Because, you know, nobody gets us in awe. Nobody makes us nervous. Mr. Brown got us a little in awe. I mean, it's James Brown. And Dan Hartman tells me, well, first of all, when you guys work with him, you don't call him James. You call him Mr. Brown. That's the first thing. That's all we ever called him in the studio. Mr. Brown this, Mr. Brown that, Mr. Brown this, Mr. Brown that. So, and then he just started telling me other stuff. He said, now you call Mr. Brown. Now another thing, if his wife is in the studio, don't look at her. I'm like, don't look at her. Don't look at her. One time we was in the studio and I was working with Mr. Brown and he stops the whole, cut. He stops everything and he looks at me and he goes, hey, Dan, what you doing looking at my wife? I saw you looking at my wife. I wasn't looking at your wife. I wasn't looking at your wife, Mr. Brown. No. I saw you looking at my wife. don't look at my wife. and then he told me this. He said, now, Lou, why would I look at his wife when I'm gay? You know, why would I do that? Now, listen, I don't have nothing against gay people, but I did say, oh, shit, Dan Hartman's gay? You know? but that's what he told me. And he told us some other stuff, which I relayed back to the guys. And we knew how to work with him. Now, during the time we was working with Mr. Brown, this was around the time where he was in trouble with the law and all that crazy stuff, shooting at the car. And we was working with him during that time. So it was a lot of crazy in the studio. And the songs basically, we like, once again, like with Full Force, one person could write a song, two people could write it. It'll always say written and produced by Full Force, the six of us. So we split everything 6 ways. So with James Brown, me and Paul was kind of spearheading working with him in the studio because of the stuff he was going through personally. We had to work a certain way with him. And I remember B telling me and Paul, yo, man, y'all knock out the songs. I got one song idea. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna save that for the end. You know, by the time it comes around to me, it's gonna be easy pickings. We said, okay. But when we was working with him, it was kind of crazy. The first song we did was I'm Real, which Kurt did the track to that. I wrote the lyrics, and it was pretty good in the beginning. But then it started getting a little harder, but we still maintained with him. And remember, he still was having like personal stuff going on. Like Reverend Al Sharpton used to pop in the studio sometimes. Remember, Mr. Brown was wearing red shades. And Al Sharpton said, Mr. Brown, how you doing? And he said, Reverend, I'm wearing red shades, but I'm seeing blue. It would be little anecdotes like that. When we always taking pictures with Mr. Brown, and the photographers were snapping away. Then when they stopped snapping, Mr. Brown went into a split out of nowhere. We're like, what the hell? And then when he rose up, the photographers is like, Mr. Brown, do it again. He said, nope, you should have took the picture when I did it, and he just walked off. But Kurt, tell them how you did, because the I'm Real, which was the first single, went #2 on the Billboard charts. And Kurt, explain how you did that track and everything like that for that and why.
Well, actually, what it was, like B said, we were into a lot of different things. And at the time, Teddy Riley was very hot. So I wanted to do something like that.
New Jack Swing.
And New Jack Swing type stuff. So I wanted to do something in that, genre of music. So I said, well, let me try to put something together like this and see if it will work for James Brown. And actually, once again, like we always say, we don't have high expectations. I didn't really have any high expectations like, oh, this is the best thing in the world. But my thing was, hey, let me try to do something that's out here right now and see if it will work for him. Mm-hmm. And it just so happened with his writing of the lyrics with, the track I did, turned out to be a good, match together for him.
Definitely. That was kind of the thing, right, Lou? When people ask us, it was more of a thing of all these people throughout history have made careers. A lot of rappers have made careers out of sampling James Brown, and it came to us kind of like, all right, let's resample the sample. Let's do what people have been, doing with James Brown records since the beginning of time, since when they discovered him. And like Lou said, that's all we did on the bus when we were touring. We inundated ourselves with new music, but there's always James Brown in the back, always drum breaks, and there was always us being amazed at how they pocketed certain things and how they played, And so when it came to doing it, it was like, oh yeah, there's no way we can do that without going back to it, what we loved about it. So that's where you had like Static and certain joints came out.
Static was the second single, and it was like #5 on the charts. So James Brown's last two songs recorded in his career, his last 2 top 5 songs ever in his career, was produced by Full Force, which I'm Real, which was #2, and Static, which was #5. And Jerry's right. When Kurt did that track, the only thing I could come up with is like the first lyric, the first thing James Brown say in the song is, All you copycats out there, get off of my tip, because I'm James Brown with the force. I ain't taking no lip. So that song was basically him having a war on people and sampling his stuff. And you should see the video, and which was done by a dear friend of ours, Nate Osborne, who did so much with Full Force videos. May he rest in peace. He did that video, and we even have a thing called Copycat Studios, and where everybody did the place that everybody's ripping off James Brown. Because I'm telling you, before that song came out, everybody just sampled all his stuff, and he wasn't getting paid. And even in the studio, he was like, I got nothing against the rappers, but I just wish I get paid. I just wish I get my money. That was this thing. So we did a song called "I'm Real." I'm the real super bad, and ain't nothing, and nobody could take anything from me. And after that song, that's when they started getting the copyright laws and the sampling laws. They started getting that all into place where nobody would be able to steal from Mr. Brown or any other of those artists anymore. Because like Jerry said, we were doing sampling on a James Brown album with James Brown, but he was getting paid for it though.
Right. Do you guys get the sense that he I mean, besides obviously not getting paid, so that's the big thing for him, but did he have an appreciation that his music was kind of, developing, or a new genre of music in itself? I mean, did he appreciate what it was actually, besides not getting paid, did he appreciate what his music was actually being used for?
I think overall he must have, but
yeah, I think he did, because before guys, am I correct? Before he got with us, didn't he do a song with Africa Bambaataa?
Yeah.
So, and Africa Bambaataa, of course, is legendary. Yeah, he's legendary. So he definitely knew the rappers was respecting him and appreciating him. But yeah, his main thing was, let me get my money, because he was so proud to do "I'm Real." He was into it. So that was and just to finish off the scenario, working on that album was like, it was crazy. So being that we was dealing with Mr. Brown with a lot of different obstacles in his way, we can't work with Mr. Brown this week because he's in jail. So we'd have to wait. We work with him again, back and forth. Sometimes Eddie Murphy would see us and he said, "Man, Full Force just messed up James Brown. They messed him up, man," because he was going through his stuff. But after we finished all the songs, from "I'm Real" to "Static," "Keep Keeping," then B, remember he said, "Yeah, man, I'll do my last idea. I'll do the last song. It'll be like cake work." And B came to do his song last, and he went to Mr. Brown to start it. And what happened?
Well,
great.
For some reason, he just didn't want to do the song. He said, "No, I'm not going to do that song." And I said, well, Mr. Brown, is it the fact you don't like the lyrics, or you didn't like the way? He said, "Well, the reason is because I'm just not going to do the song." I'm like, okay, so, all right, so maybe we could change something. Maybe we could make it the way you like it. You went, okay, you could know that I'm not going to do the song. I'm like, damn. So then I remember looking up at the engineer from behind the glass, Jerry, Tony, and I think Curt too, and Shy, engineer. They were absolutely dying laughing and hiding their face while laughing.
Unbelievable.
Oh my God, they were like dying and hiding behind the console, like seeing their heads moving, laughing. And I said, "Yo, call Paul and Lou." Yo, I swear, I'll never forget. Paul and Lou, they popped into the room like Lenny and Squiggy from Laverne and Shirley. They popped in like, what happened, what's going on? What happened? What do you do? What's going on? What you saying? They was already shell shocked. They were like,
they knew something was up.
Who just was like, they was all messed up. So then I tried to use the psychology, and I said to Mr. Brown, I said, "Well, Mr. Brown, let me tell you what the song's about." I said, "The song's about you being so great that people can't even explain how great you are. And they just all want you to know that they love you so much that they just can't get enough, which is the name of the song. They just can't get enough. And he said, they love me, huh? They love you so much, they just can't get enough. And he said, all right, I'll do the song. Come on. And that's how we ended.
Hilarious.
That's how we ended up doing the damn song.
That's funny.
Crazy.
That's how we ended up doing it.
That's awesome.
Man.
You know, you guys obviously you've worked with so many artists, and I want to kind of quickly go through a list of names, and if you guys could just kind of briefly talk about this kind of what stood out to you about each of these artists. If I could start with Samantha Fox.
Oh Lord, Sammy.
Well, Samantha Fox, we must have did like maybe 5 or 6 songs for her in our producing songwriting career. But the 2 biggest hits for her, actually, me and Jerry spearheaded them. It was called "Naughty Girls Need Love Too" and "I Want to Have Some Fun."
Wow.
And I always used to tell Jerry, I said, "Damn, Jerry, you threw the kitchen sink on this track." Jerry used to throw all kinds of shit in there, all kinds of samples, all kinds of clings and clacks. And
Wild West.
And then even with Naughty Girls Need Love Too, I brought in us singing Alice because our record was so big. The Alice song was so big in England, where Samantha's from. We tossed it in there. Even with "I Want to Have Some Fun," I remember coming up with the hook and calling the president of Jive Records, 12 Midnight, Barry Weiss. "Barry, listen to this hook. I want to have some fun." Blah, blah, blah. And he said, "Blue, it's catchy, but don't fucking call me at 12 Midnight." And then go back to Jerry, threw it to Jerry. Jerry come up with the crazy track with all this stuff. And working in the studio with Samantha was really fun, right, Jerry?
Hilarious. Oh, it was nonstop comedy. Like, it was just, she's great, first of all, but just her attitude, her willingness to just do anything. It was match made in heaven, man. We had a ball doing that whole thing. Pretty fun.
So, next artist, Patti LaBelle.
Ooh.
Well, working with Patti LaBelle was great also. We ended up actually, we didn't really have time. I mean, because at this time it was really sought after. I don't know why we didn't have time, which was crazy. And we just said we don't have time to work with Patti LaBelle. You know, it was actually Timmy Regisford, who was the A&R man at the time at MCA Records, would call me. I said, "We just don't have time, man. We don't have time." And then out of nowhere, I don't know if y'all remember this, guys. We was in 3 rooms in Sigma Sound Studio.
Yeah, we had 3 rooms.
We were doing James Brown, but James Brown wasn't there. We were just doing Musically. And then in another room, we was doing Samantha Fox. And then in another room, we was doing, I think, Shell Pepsi Riley, 3 rooms. But in one of the rooms, out of nowhere, even after we said we didn't have time to work with Patti, and we were in New York, Patti's from Philadelphia, in walks Timmy Regisford, the A&R man, with Patti LaBelle. Unbeknownst to us, nobody told us. They just walked in. Patti LaBelle looked at us. We stopped everything. We were so shocked. "Hey guys, listen. I hear that you guys don't have time to work with Miss Patti. But I'm just letting y'all know now. I just want you to get your schedules correct and you talk to Timmy when you can, and because y'all gonna work on Miss Patti's album, okay? Y'all gonna work on it." And that was it. And we were like, we were so dumbfounded, and we ended up working with Patti LaBelle, who she was so great in the studio, easy to work with. In fact, we surprised Lisa and Shell Pepsi Riley. We told them we wanted them to come do background vocals for a new artist that we're working with. And when they got there and saw it was Patti LaBelle, they were blown away.
So, next artist, the Force MDs.
Oh, boys.
Well, the Force Mds, we did a song. The first song we ever did on the Force Mds was a song called "Are You Really Real?", which was written by the late Trisco from the Force Mds. And how could I forget the producer's name? It escapes me, and that's so jacked up for me. But Milner, Travis Milner. Travis Milner also co-wrote the song, but we produced it. We did the track. Who did that track, guys? Of "Are You Really Real"?
Honestly,
Joe,
can't remember.
I don't know.
I literally
What's the
can't
name?
remember.
Yeah.
I
okay.
can't remember. That's
Well,
weird. Like I
one
can't
of the
remember.
guys, Kurt, Jerry, or B, one of them did the track.
Nah,
But
that's Kurt or Jerry, because I definitely didn't do that. I don't remember
Yeah, I
that.
can't remember.
you remember
I
Kurt?
don't
Yeah, it was
remember
me.
that one.
Yeah, it was
Kurt
me.
did the
Oh,
track.
you did, Kurt?
Kurt
Oh,
did,
yeah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kurt did
I
the
remember
track.
not even hardly. Yeah.
Kurt did the track for the Force Mds. I remember them loving the track when they heard it, and we did
Yeah,
the
they
song
did.
"Are You Really Real," which today Force Mds uses that track that Kurt did as their intro, still to this day. Kurt, you want to talk about the track with the Force Mds?
So, well, I mean, it's just
Yeah, I mean, actually, it was just once again, it was just a project that we had, we were doing, and I figured, okay, well, let me come up with some type of music, to add to what was already there. So I just, like I said, it was just a track that, in other words, it was just a project that we were doing, meaning a good thing, meaning a project, but it was just a project, another project that we were doing that I was very happy to be involved with. So.
And they always used to confuse us back in the day. Like sometimes people would say, "Man, Full Force, I love your song Tender Love," and we're like, "No, that's the Force Mds." It would be confusion all the time. But getting to work with them, the original members, TCD, may he rest in peace, Mercury, may he rest in peace, Cisco, may he rest in peace, and Stevie D. At that time, Jesse D was in jail, but we still ended up working with the Force MDs, not only in that song, but other songs after that. They're our Forces, Joint Forces brothers.
I want to ask you about, this next artist who I got the opportunity to see live in concert. I think one of the most incredible concerts I ever saw, working with BB King. What's that like? What was that like?
Wow. The BB King situation. The name of the song that we did with BB King, we actually did a remix of it. It's called The Thrill Comes Over Me. And I remember when it was MCA Records and man, how can I forget this executive? Yeah, it'll come to me. Ernie Singleton. Ernie Singleton called me and said, "Man, how would you guys love to do something with BB King?" And I'm like, "Are you kidding?" Because at that time we were saying yes to a lot of things after saying no to various things. And to work with BB King was fantastic. You know what I mean? It was incredible, legendary, and we couldn't believe it. You take things for granted so much, but when we see the blueprint of our career of working with so many legendary artists, it's crazy. And the fact that BB King's restaurant in New York City was one of my favorite places to go to see great shows and eat good food. And one time, because we worked with BB King, he was able to let me have some free dinner at his place. And yeah, God bless him. May he rest in peace also. Great artist.
And I know Jay-Z called you about this artist, Rihanna. Like, what was Jay-Z's pitch to you about her? I know she was 17 years old at the time. And then when you first met her, what stood out to you all about her as this incredible singer?
Well, Jay-Z had told Ty, I forgot Ty's last name, but Ty, who was Jay-Z's right-hand man, he got in touch. He gave me a call, got in touch with us, and I went down to have a meeting with him. And all they wanted was Full Force to work on something with them, because this was when we was working with the Backstreet Boys and people like that. They just wanted Full Force to do something with them. And then Ty was the one to pitch me Rihanna, show me a picture of her, saying that, listen, she's going to be huge. She's going to be big. I think she was 17 or 18 at the time. And that was their pitch, basically. And I heard some of the songs that she did that they let me hear, sort of a reggae mixed with R&B. And then I went back to the guys and told everybody about Rihanna. I remember Jay-Z coming into the room and said, "Yo, we just want Full Force to be a part of this girl's project because we really believe in her." And we was part of the first album, the Ponder Replay album, which went, quadruple platinum and everything like that. And working with her in the studio was also fun. She has a crazy sense of humor. Her mom was there at a lot of the various sessions, and working with her was just great.
Yeah. Did you believe that when they were saying she's going to be huge? Did you believe that she was going to be huge?
You know, so we was proud of that. That Jay-Z, who was president of Def Jam, he was the newly president of Def Jam Records. He wanted to be part of it. So we was proud of that. We didn't have no idea how huge she was going to become, but we was honored to work with her. And like I said, she was funny to be around. She had a great sense of humor. She loved my crazy pranks, and it was just a great thing. We didn't know she was going to be huge though, like she is, icon.
I mean, it seems it's just to move on. But there was artists. There's this one artist that you obviously guys knew that was going to be huge. And that's Nicki Minaj. I mean, you were with her. It seemed like from the beginning. What was it about her that you guys knew to shop her around and try to get her that record deal?
You guys want to speak on that?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you this. Nikki, it was one of those things where in hip hop it's funny because sometimes the finer you look, the less talented they believe you are. Right. You know, but Nikki was actually somebody who was very, very adamant about writing her own shit. That's why when that whole thing came out about Safari Road and stuff, I was like, oh, Nikki must be going ballistic right now. Because Nikki was the type that and she actually turned down a deal that shot for her with Warner Brothers because they wanted someone to write for her, do Santana, something like that. And Nikki wasn't having it. And mind you, Nikki was starving at the time. But she still refused to sign a record deal where somebody had to write for her. So what made Nikki special was the sound of her voice and the fact that she wrote her own shit. But it's not that she just wrote it, it fit who she was. That's what made Nikki really special. If you took away her writing capability, she wouldn't be Nikki. She would be just another pretty girl who's just rapping. But the fact that she wrote for her, and I'm telling you something else. Some of the deepest and the best materials that Nikki ever wrote is the stuff that she did as a mixtape. Some of the stuff that we did, because when Nikki blew up, she didn't do songs with such depth. She did this song with us called the Autobiography of Nicki Mirage, which is her real name. And if you listen to the song, listen to the words, she talks about, you know, she was like, the father was a crack fiend, had been running up the block like a track team. Real shit that happened in her life. And then she talks about at the end where she had an abortion. And you could hear her starting to cry in the studio while doing to it. Let me tell you something. I always wish that Nikki brought that type of depth when she went to Young Money and did those kind of songs. Because to me, that showed how prolific she was as a writer, as a thinker, not just a hit record. And that's what made Nikki special to me, the depth of her writing.
And I just want to give some quick props to Neil Grant, who's a friend of mine. He's the one that first told me about Nikki, and just, you know, she was so unknown. And I went to a studio in Brooklyn, Boz, his name is Boz, and that's when I met Nikki and heard her. And then I hooked her up with my son, who was at the time looking to do a rap group. And I introduced her, and my son and Louis met her and said, wow, she's great. And then my son, Lou Star, he put together Safari to be part of the group, which was Nikki's ex-boyfriend, and a guy named 7 Up. So the four of them went by the name of the Hood Stars, and they wrote a lot of their own lyrics. They worked together, and we tried to get them a deal as a group. That didn't work out. Then we tried to get Nikki a deal by herself. That didn't work out, but we parted ways amicably anyway. And then from there, she hit, and I remember telling Nick, I said, Nick, you should try putting your stuff on MySpace. You know, MySpace. And that's what she did. And that's how a guy named Fendi discovered her. He changed her name to Nicki Minaj. Then after him, then Debbie Anthony came into this position, got her all the way up to the whole Young Money situation, and then the women. So we're very proud. We're very proud of
this. Let me say this to all aspiring artists from that story alone with Nikki and the Hood Stars, it's very important to pay attention to your mistakes, because our biggest mistake is that we forgot how we got in the game, how we hustled and got our independent labels just to get out there. What we were trying to do is get the Hood Stars with Nikki a major label deal, and they're not going to be able to hear that. They wasn't be able to feel that. We should have did what Lou told Nikki to do from the very jump. We should have got them on MySpace. We should have just hustled the whole independent route. So always pay attention to your mistakes, just so you don't repeat it again, because that was a big mistake on our part. Sure.
I want to turn and talk to you about race playing a factor in popularity of music. And I ask you this because in 2004 you all worked with the Black Eyed Peas, and this is when Fergie was a member of the group. We recently had Kim Hill on the interview podcast, and she talked about how she feels that when they went with a white face with Fergie, the Black Eyed Peas were able to kind of blow up and be more commercial successful. Has that ever been a conversation? A label come to you and say, "Hey, we have this song idea. We want you to write this song for these white artists because we know these white artists will make a lot of money." Versus you could easily write the songs for these easily talented black artists, but no, we want you to go for the white artists because they're going to make the money for you.
Have a company ever came to us with that?
Yeah, or just you knew you were writing. Maybe you were writing for a white artist because they were going to make the most money.
How about this? How about we said yes? Let's work with some white people. How about us saying that? Only because there's six members of Full Force. There's six of us. So at the time we were just artists. I think the only white artist we worked with was Samantha Fox, right? But after that, I remember David McPherson talking about the Backstreet Boys before, but whatever, we didn't take it that serious until I went to meeting to Barry Weiss. And I said, at Jive Records, and I said, "Yo, Barry, do you have any like white people we could work with? I mean, there's six of us here, and you guys got all this." And then he showed me a video of the Backstreet Boys, "Quit Playing Games with My Heart." He said, "Lou, you guys might be perfect to work with this group." And I took that video back to the fellas with the Backstreet Boys, and he said, "Listen, Lou, they're huge in overseas. Huge. They're not known here in the United States yet. They're not known, but they're huge overseas. But we are going to plan to do an album here for the United States. You guys might want to work with them." And I took the video back to the guys. I said, "Guys, we got to get on this project, man. They're huge overseas, but nobody knows them yet. But we got to get on this project." And then I remember Jerry, man. He just came up to me and he said, "Yo, Lou, man, I got a song that might be good for them." I was just toying around with it. And then he starts singing me the hook. "But my love is all I have to give. Without you, I don't think I can live." And I looked at Jerry. I kissed him on his cheek. And I said, "Jerry, that's a smash."
Yeah,
Jerry, you take it from there.
There's nothing to take. That's pretty much the story. I mean, but going back to the race thing, it's a little weird because we didn't do that. We didn't go after that. It was more like music was doing what it was doing at the time. R&B was a little more R&B hip hop at that point, thanks to whatever and whoever was around right at that period. And you had 90s hip hop doing what it was doing. So we were in there doing our thing, but yeah, like Lou said, we had to eat. We were looking once again at the marketplace, going, "Well, yeah, a lot of producers getting their props for doing so and so, and Mary J and Jodeci, and you had Teddy doing this thing." And we were like, "All right, what's next for us?" You know what I mean? And when Lou brought the project back, it was more like, "Well, yeah, we can do that. That's kind of always been in our DNA." You know what I mean? Doing middle type songs that are a little bit R&B, a little bit of pop, just enough for each market. And that's kind of how that came about. But like Lou said, we never really got approached with that. It wasn't like it wasn't like an ultimatum. Wasn't anything like from labels saying, "Hey, you guys should do this." We never picked and choose like that.
Yeah,
Could be.
but you know why though? Because the music industry is not like the NBA or anything like that. The music industry is right in your fucking face. They're like going to tell you, yo, you need to work with this artist because they're white and they're going to go bigger. They'll tell you just like that. Just no thing. And you never found it as racist. You just found it as, oh, that is what it is. If you didn't agree with them, you go, nah, that's bullshit. I don't think they're going to go. So that's what it was. So you already knew that, oh, if I do this with this artist here and they're white and they're talented and even they can sound soulful, then this might blow up really big. There was no hiding it. So no one ever approached you like saying, listen, you shouldn't work with this black artist. Work with my white artist here. It wasn't like Chuck Berry back in the day, Tutti Frutti, when Cat Boone came and stole the shit. It wasn't like that. It was like they would come up to you with the white artist and say, yo, I think this white artist could blow up. And being that they're white, they could blow up in Australia, they could blow up overseas. I think so. They didn't try to hide that shit, but they never made it like, yo, don't work with this black artist, work with this one. That shit would have set off a whole different vibe.
Yeah.
Like,
and you know, one more thing about the race card. I'll never forget when we was working with the Backstreet Boys. It led us to work with, like, you know, NSYNC and everybody like that. We would be in the Orlando compound with their group who did Backstreet and NSYNC. They all were there. You were like the only black faces there as producers. Great. So we would huddle amongst ourselves if we saw another black face come into the compound, and we go, "Who the hell's that? Who's that black guy? Who's that?"
Dakari. Yeah, big shout to Dakari.
Who the hell are they? We wanted to be the only ones.
Oh man, that's great. The only one.
And you know, another thing, Justin Timberlake. Okay, because let me tell you something. NSYNC, they respect black music. But I'll never forget Justin Timberlake. He always loved black music. He always wanted to get accepted by black folk. So I'll never forget, we did an article in Vibe Magazine, and Jerry said something about, we did a Vibe Magazine article because of producing all the teeny bopper kids, and Jerry said something in there about, yeah, man, you see this kid named Justin Timberlake who's doing the beatbox, and he's playing Brian McKnight songs, and he loves black music. And because Jerry did that, Justin was so excited. I'll never forget. Yo, where's Jerry? Where's Jerry? I gotta talk to Jerry. Thank you, Jerry. Jerry, thank you so much. And it was in Vibe Magazine. He just loved black music.
Did the white artists know why they were? I guess why they were in the position that they were in. I mean, did they? I guess appreciate that in a way, or were they? I mean, was race a factor for them?
That's interesting. I would think they did. I think they respected it and they were grateful. But remember, they were younger, and just like artists of today, you got a big crossover thing happening now. You got these Spotify artists and influencers and all that literally doing deep R&B and throwback 90s music and stuff that Aaliyah was doing. And to them, that's just music. They grew into it like that. I remember somebody disputing, they were talking about appropriation with Billie Eilish, and they were like, yeah, but when you look at how Billie grew up, and they show some of that in this movie, she grew into, her first exposure to music was Missy Elliott with the big clothes and TLC with the oversized and Chris Cross. So you got a lot of kids that came into it loving that music, and to them, they want to be accepted, but it wasn't like, oh yeah, let's hustle this because we know we're white and we can get over a bit. I don't think that was a big part of it. Who knows? Maybe managers and record labels, but as far as the artists themselves, I think it's just a deep love for what, you know, R&B and black music brought to the table since way back. You know what I mean? Even with those, we were doing kind of what people considered sugary pop, more pop leading music on those acts, and you had Backstreet and LFO and cats like that, but they all had roots in black music. A lot of the kids were from the church, you know what I mean? So that was always a thing, you know?
I know we were talking for quite a while, but I don't want to leave without, of course, mentioning you guys are not just, you know, musicians and producers and writers, but you've of course been in films, and I would have to ask you about House Party, and how did that come to be? And then also how do you get into a position where my understanding is that they were writing the part for you even prior to even actually auditioning or actually being involved in the film?
Okay. Well, House Party was like the three of us. The Full Force Brothers was in House Party. Even though my cousins won't remember this, I tried to get the three of them to be a part of House Party too. They came to California. Remember, they put y'all in makeup and everything. They were supposed to play the role of the psychopathic cousins. Remember that guy?
I think so.
You remember that?
I remember being on the set.
Yeah, and I don't know if y'all remember that part, but you did. They put y'all in makeup and everything like that. But anyway, what happened is that Reggie Hudlin wrote the script, and in the script, we were described in the script. Robert Ford, may he rest in peace, because he used to work with Full Force and he co-produced some stuff with us, like with Baby Moore. And Reggie Hudlin, he was reading the script, and it said Kid and Play, or whoever was reading Kid and Play, gets accosted by some bullies with droopy Jerry curls and great physique. Somebody like the Full Force Brothers. That was written actually in the script. In the script. So then Robert Ford told Reggie, because they were good friends, Robert Ford said, Reggie, why don't you just get the Full Force Brothers? And he said, I don't know, well, can they act? He said, well, you've seen two of them in Crush Group. I mean, yeah, just call them and see what they can do. And then Reggie Hudlin called Paul, and the rest was history. As the three of us went down, not to audition, but just to show Reggie and Warrington, who was the producer of House Party, that we can act. And the three of us have been, I always used to do little plays for me and my brothers when we were little. So our chemistry developed ever since we were young. And when we did the monologue for them, they gave us the part immediately, which was great. And then when we did the table read, they flew us down to LA. We did the table read with Martin Lawrence, Kid and Play, Tisha Campbell, AJ Johnson, the late great John Witherspoon, the late great Robin Harris. George Clinton was there because he played the old school DJ. Darryl Mitchell, Groove B. Allen. And we just did the table read of the whole script. After the first table read, I went back to the hotel where me and my brothers were at. And I said, "Yo, guys, man, I want us to be more than what we are in the script. In the script, we were just bland bullies, a couple of grunts and moans and regular words." I said, let me change some stuff around and let's show it to the Hudlin brothers. And if they like it, that'll be great. If they don't like it, we stick to the script. And what happened is that in the original script, B was supposed to be Zilla. That was his name. No, B was supposed to be Pee-wee. That was his name. I said, B, let me change names with you since I'm smaller than you and Paul. I'll be Pee-wee, you're Zilla, and let's do it like this. So I came up with the idea about kick your freaking ass. And I came up with the idea, I smell pussy. This is something I used to say in the studio a lot of times. I don't know if you remember, Jerry. Whenever we women would walk through, like they're coming through, we see them and I smell, and Jerry would say, Lou, don't. And I was So what happened is that we showed the Hudlin brothers the changing of that scene. They saw the three of us, we improvised, and after they saw us, what we did, the three of us, and me changing my voice, Warrington Hudlin said, keep it. As soon as they said keep it, we went back and we changed every scene that we was in. We ourselves changed the dialogue, and the rest is House Party, Full Force Brothers bully history. And on top of that, which was great, working with all those people, what was great was that we even had to have a song of ours, which was the brainchild of Baby Gerry, which was Ain't My Type of Hype, which 30 years later is the biggest Full Force, the artist, which is our biggest and most popular song to this day. And we have to thank House Party for that. But that was Baby Gerry's brainchild, that song.
And when you look at the Ain't My Type of Hype video and the live performance, and then you also think about Kid and Play and their live performance, what kind of wisdom during these shoots did you guys talk about in terms of the live performance, but also what do you pass on to artists that you work with today about the importance of the live performance?
I mean, that was always our thing, though. But like Lou said, before we did the records, we were known for giving it all on that stage. You know what I mean? When we were kids, we wanted to be that culmination of everyone from Prince to, you know what I mean, to we looked at rock acts, we looked at like Poison and the stuff that was coming over MTV. We were like, damn, rock cats are having a ball, man. We should do that. You know what I mean? So that's a lot of the dress code came from it. So we kind of went everywhere with that. And then that we kind of became known for doing our thing at the stage show. Back in the Fresh Fest with all hip hop acts, we were always wondered like, how are we going to get received by these all hip hop, you know? And then, yeah, we go out there and like, do our wildness, man, you know, even down to the strip show. Paul used to strip on stage, and you know what I mean? But it was fun, man. We knew that was what our thing was, you know, making the crowd, winning them over, you know what I mean? So,
yeah, I mean, our show was so crazy, energetic, and, you know, and plus we had Jerry curls and we were showing our skin. So that was kind of different back then because no group ever like spearheaded the show of physical fitness than us, and that was spearheaded by my brother Paul. But that's how it was. But our stage show, like Jerry said, from before we became famous, we used to even do impressions. We used to do impressions of B would be James Brown, then Kurt would be Chuck Berry. Then we would do the rock group called where Michael Hughes came on and did Whip It. We did Devo. I dressed up as Sylvester, and he rest in peace.
Oh my God.
And we did crazy stuff, but we were an entertainment group as well.
Yeah.
When we became full force, and we did, like Jerry said, we did the Fresh Fest with people like the Fat Boys, rest in peace, Marky D, rest in peace, Buffy. But we performed with a lot of rap acts, but we used to kill them on the shows. We used to rock on our shows. And then we culminated with the end of Paul Anthony doing a strip tease, taking off his damn clothes, not only the top, but the bottom. Nobody's ever done that before in music. And when he pull it, everybody say, pull it. Everybody say, take it off, take it off, take it off. And he take off the top or whatever, they scream. Then I say, ladies, wasn't that some cheap shit? Everybody say, cheap, cheap. I said, Paul, you can finish the job. Everybody say, pull it down, pull it down, pull it down, pull it down. And then the music, the guys would do the whole drama music playing, and Paul would be unhooking his belt, and then when he pull it down, he'd be dressed in his bikini, his G-string, and the women used to go crazy. And they went crazy so much so that our hotel, oh Lord, it was ridiculous.
Okay, Lou.
But at that time, the guys, see, at that time, I wasn't into that because I was married. I used to just get into my Bible while the rest of the guys just went.
Okay.
But you know something? We used to have fun because I remember on stage, we do that. I said, y'all want to know where the hotel is at? And they go, yeah. I said, no, I can't do that because then the people at the Marriott on 22 Jefferson Street would be upset.
Yeah, we shut down a couple places back then.
And Jerry, what about? Remember, some girl was following you from state to state with us.
Yeah. Let's not talk about those times. Let's not talk about Me Too movements and no. That was just a place and time, man. We were young, they were young, you know what I mean? And yeah, you had girls that we did states that weren't too far, 3 or 4 hours away, and you'd see these girls that just be like, where are you at? No place to stay. Okay, you know, it got wild, man. It got wild. But like I said, the performances, even today, a lot of people would be quick to say a lot of that's gone from the industry, but when you look around, man, when you look at cats like Bruno and you know, there's a lot of them out there that you can see that's where they come from. You look at a Bruno Mars and you're like, damn, he's literally all of that brought back. You know what I mean? Right. And even some of the rappers know it's more than just the auto-tune and them jumping around. They bring a stage show now, you know, because they know that's what it is. You can have some records, but these people are coming to see you and be entertained, man. We always knew that. It was like, you're paying money to sit in a spot and have us sing you some songs, you know what I mean? So you got to do with that what you need to do, you know what I mean? So yeah, we always kind of knew that, man. It's a big deal for us. Yeah.
So I have just 2 more questions. And, you know, I mentioned at the beginning how Full Force, you guys and Michael Jackson were kind of the playlist of my childhood, right?
Thanks, man.
So I have to admit, was there ever a moment or a chance that there would have been or could have been a full force Michael Jackson collaboration?
through LaToya.
The closest. Good, Jerry. Y'all can talk about the closest we got to Michael Jackson. Was
got that one.
The closest we ever got to a Michael Jackson full force collaboration was when we produced and wrote for LaToya Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
That's the closest. And it was crazy. We did 4 songs on her album, RC album. A song called "You're Gonna Get Rocked," "You Blue," "Such a Wicked Love," and not giving up on love. Those 4 songs. And working with LaToya Jackson, you know, it was an experience. You know what I mean? And and she was really a sweetheart. But man, it was crazy. She used to tell us all kinds of stories about her brother and her sister. And then at the time, she was married to a guy named Jack Gordon, who was there at the studio with her. And he would always tell us in front of her, "Oh, she's much talented than Janet. Oh, yeah, she dances better than Janet. She's much talented than Janet Jackson." And he would say this in front of LaToya, and you know, but it is what it is. The album did okay. It didn't do all that hot, but we did 4 joints on that. I remember B's like, "We're gonna make LaToya Jackson better than Janet," but that didn't happen. But but working with her was great. You know, working with her was great, and it was a cool film. I'll never forget the time.
Just to chime in, we never wanted to mention that we work with LaToya Jackson. We were like, let's not mention this. So you're hearing something that we never used to want to mention, even though we know we did it. So.
It was more like, you know, and like you said, the proximity to Michael was, I'm sure, what led us into, oh snap, okay, let's just, you know, see if we can make this thing happen and be cool. But yeah, I mean, when you look at what Teddy ended up doing with him at you know, on that project, it's like, yeah, that needed to happen. That was a match made. It was kind of like with us and James Brown. It's kind of like, yeah, he brought Michael into right what was happening at that time without, you know, without foregoing the integrity of who Michael was and what you expected from him. So yeah, it was kind of like, nah, that was kind of the epitome of Michael in the new age, and we were like, yeah, that was how that should have went. You know what I mean? So whether it would have happened or not, you know, in the future, who knows? But you know, rest in peace to the greatest, man. He's him and Prince are like the greatest for like. If it was anyone I would want to work with, yeah, them two, they're like the top of the list. You know what I mean?
So my final question: you've obviously all done so much in the music industry, and you've also, you know, talked about fitness and health and that area as well. Looking kind of back at what you've done and even future stuff as well, has there been this moment, maybe a one moment for you, maybe even a note from a fan that kind of really stands out to you to this day?
So I don't know. For me, it's all of the above, man. Sometimes, like you say, when you look back and when you hear yourself telling these stories, you're like, what? James Brown? It's like, what? Patti LaBelle walks into a studio and commands us to work with, you know what I mean? So it's all those things. The Backstreet Boys, that was, we saw them come up, and like you always wonder, people always ask, did you guys know that was going to be that big of a No, I didn't know they were going to be. We knew they were doing their thing when they came across and the hit started happening, and then we're receiving these million whatever plaques, these diamond plaques. It's like, yeah, that's a big major deal. And to see thousands of girls singing a song along with those kids that we did, that was like, for me, and I was like, I can't follow that. You know what I mean? It's still a little weird when you see that. You know, you see the videos and stuff like that. So especially, like you said, looking back, it's like, damn. You know what I mean? So just blessed that we were able to do it. Blessed we came up in a time that allowed us to be able to swing that. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to echo that with Jerry. I mean, there's so many stories, there's so many moments. Yeah. But I definitely remember the Backstreet Boys because that was definitely one of the biggest songs we've ever produced ever. And it's like a worldwide smash all over. And to see these girls like on TRL singing those words And every time the host would go, and that was the Backstreet Boys, and that was written and produced by Full Force. And they would give us our props. And then I got to shout out also one of the members of the Backstreet Boys. His name is Howie D. When we did the Backstreet Boys, the president of the company, Jive Records, said, listen, now when you go do the song with the Backstreet Boys, make sure the youngest one is singing the whole song because all the girls love him the best. And he was talking about Nick Carter. Let him sing the song from start to finish because all the girls love him. That was Clive Cole that told me that. But I said, okay, no problem. But I knew when we went to Orlando to work with them, I wanted to do it different, no matter what the record company said. Because one of my favorite groups in the world is the Temptations. And the Temptations always had multiple singers in their songs. So with the Backstreet Boys, I wanted them to have lead parts. I would just arrange the parts. Paul and Jerry mostly preside over their vocals, but I was kind of arranging who would sing what, where. I opened up the song with Nick Carter doing his song, but then Howie D, who never sang any lead parts in any Backstreet Boys song ever, I asked the guys, I said, yo, how about Howie D? How come he doesn't sing any leads? Oh, because he's just in the background. That's it. He just does background. Okay. And I went to Howie. Howie, how did you don't sing leads? He goes, I don't know. I said, okay, we're going to change that now, brother. You're going to sing a lead vocal. You're going to open up the second verse. Then after you finish, then AJ. In the beginning will be Nick, then Brian, then you, then that. And I had all of them, even Kevin singing a bass part. They each sang different. And my inspiration for that was the Temptations. They each had lead vocals. And to this day, Howie has been so indebted to us for giving him his first lead vocal ever in his career, which led to him doing more lead vocals. I remember they invited me to their Howie invited me to his house, and I had dinner with his family. And then I said to them, I said, wow, this is crazy. Something tells me, am I the first black guy to ever have dinner here? He said, yes, you are. And it was so funny to the point that years later, when he got married, he invited me to their wedding. And there I am at the wedding. I sang at their wedding. Then I spoke. I said a poem. And I said, this is funny. I once ate at Howie D's house, and I was the first black guy to ever eat at dinner. And I'm looking around here.
Oh, man. Great.
So funny. But those are some great memories with the Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, funny stuff.
Legendary Full Force. It's been an honor to have this conversation with you.
Man.
Thank you. On allhiphop.com presents the Library with Tim Heinekel. I greatly appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you, man. Pleasure was ours.
Thank you so much, man. We appreciate that.